Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining and welcome back to Wall Street Silver. Joining us today is our good friend and legend, David Morgan from the Morgan Report. Great to see you again, David.
Ivan, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure and always great having you on Wall Street Silver. So the huge news this week is the IMF. They came out this week. The IMF chief came out this week and warned that the world is heading towards an age of instability. In your opinion, David, how crazy will 2023 be?
It's hard to say, of course. I mean, we're seeing more and more volatility, which is another way of saying instability. And I think the main thing is look at the physical economy more than the financial markets. Obviously, the financial markets at some point reflect the physical economy, but there's a huge distortion. I mean, we have high numbers on stocks, as an example, with earnings going down, which is irrational, but the
Right.
stock market is irrational. So the point I'm making is everything depends on energy. We're seeing a contraction in energy. Costs are going up. Saudi Arabia just raised the price because they lowered the production by 2 million barrels a day. So it all interplays. And I would say that the instability that we have now, here's my statement, is calm relative to what it's going to be. Maybe not by the end of the year, but certainly within the next year.
Right. Another article I seen this week, David, is one of the largest vegetable producers in Northern Europe got shut down just because of the energy prices. So what happens when it hits a car producer like BMW or Mercedes? Do you think that will happen?
Well, everything depends on the energy. So,
Right.
we're in a profit system, meaning that you're not in business unless you're making a profit. Now, of course, the way the debt system is set up, you can lose money for years as long as your banking buddies are willing to fund a losing project
Right.
or a losing corporation. You can continue as a zombie corporation, lose money every year, but stay in business, quote unquote. Point being is you can't fake it in the energy sector. Not only the price is there for everyone to see, but if you cannot make a profit because you've got to raise your prices too high and the market can't handle it, you go out of business. So to me, it matters more that it's food than it would be an auto manufacturer. I mean, you can drive or repair an automobile and keep it going,
Right.
but if you can't feed yourself, you've got a bigger problem. So it goes across the board, Ivan, as you well know, and you've alluded to. You're just asking, what's the ultimate repercussions? And it's a contraction, large contraction in the overall economy on a global basis, and it means a lower standard of living for almost everyone.
Hmm. Now, our favorite topic, silver. We are seeing huge numbers get depleted from the COMEX and LBMA, David. What's your opinion? Will this trend continue?
The trend continues until it actually stops. So the trend will continue. And when will it stop? I don't know. Will it stop the comebacks or the paper markets get a good spanking as they should have? And I think it will. It's possible. I really don't know. The powers that be will try to keep it going as long as they can. But the emperor has no clothes. I mean, Wall Street Silver, everyone that follows Wall Street Silver, most of the other pundits that are out there, and there are several. I mean, Rafi and many of the people you interview. I mean, it's obvious that the silver of last resort resides on the COMEX and the LBMA.
Hmm.
And both of them are being drained, and even the SLV to some extent. It's even coming out of the SLV. So it looks to me, and the numbers speak for themselves, that there isn't any easily obtainable silver through the normal process of the mining to refining cycle. Smelters, some are closed down, and we've seen a lot of distortions in the coin market, especially from the US Mint, which really raises an eyebrow or two because they're proven they're quite capable of minting 40 to 45 million ounces of silver in a given year, and yet they can't
Right.
come close to that this year. Something isn't right. So all kinds of indicators. I think the trend is there. I think it'll continue. My wish would be it continues until they break apart
Yeah.
this fake market. But I don't know that will happen yet. I do believe it will happen at some point.
Do you think they'll just change the rules like what they did with the Hunt brothers in the COMEX?
I think they'll go to a two-tiered system, basically, which means they'll, first of all, they already have the rules in place. And of course, if
Right.
you read their rule book, they basically can do whatever they want. So let's establish that. Second thing is they may just say strategic users only. We're in a war effort, and only people that are making semiconductor chips or bombs can have the silver. Something along those lines. I'm just making it up at the top of my head, but I'm giving you the idea that they could implement some kind of rhetoric that comes out and says, you nasty people that want to protect your wealth, you can't have the silver. Only we that kill people can have it. I mean, I'm trying to be funny. I know it's a sick statement, but
Right.
I'm being very direct here because, I mean, really, war doesn't serve anyone except the bankers. All wars are bankers' wars. You've heard me say in the past.
You spoke earlier about Saudi Arabia and OPEC cutting oil production by 2 million barrels a day, and they're lowering oil prices for Europe, but they're raising them for the US. And the White House came out this week and said OPEC is basically siding with Russia. How strong are those statements when they're saying OPEC is siding with Russia?
Well, I think it's just to obscure the truth. I mean, I am world traveled, as you well know, and I used to jokingly say, but it's also true that if the U.S. citizens ever had to pay for petrol what they pay in Europe, they wouldn't revolt, but they'd have a big eye opener. I mean, most Americans, unfortunately, are undereducated, in my opinion, so they don't have a grasp of what the rest of the world looks like and what it functions like and how they use their energy versus how we use it. We are rather gluttonous. Me, I speak for Americans now, North Americans, but not so much Canada as the US, but I still put us both in the same box, more or less. So we're, supersize me. I mean, everything's bigger or better or wasteful. And of course, that's not the attitude in Europe, and it's not the attitude, of course, in Asia. I think it's kind of a bit of a comeuppance that there should be like a world price for it, but there isn't, right?
Right.
And then there should be maybe, I don't know, there should be a national price for oil. I hate regulation, as you know. I think the free markets could dictate if they were really allowed to be free, but they're not. So, long answer, Ivan. I do think that it's kind of funny,
Yeah.
and I think higher energy costs are here to stay. And I think we'll see more and more volatility in the energy sector, which means across the entire economy.
Now, you look at all across the world, David. We're seeing protests in Europe against inflation. We're seeing them in South Africa, Middle East, all over the place. But we're not seeing them on a massive scale in Canada and the US. Why do you think that? Is it because you think that people are just less educated on it, or why do you think?
Most riots that take people to the streets are over food.
Right.
And so that's one precursor. You look at Sri Lanka, it's food or money, but basically, money buys food. And if you have money and it can't buy food, you take to the streets. If you don't have enough money to pay your rent, you take to the streets. So that's what we're seeing. It hasn't hit America and Canada because we're still able to, for the most part, buy what we need. And, going a step further, and I've thought about this, I haven't voiced it in a long time. But, people talk about the soup lines in the 30s, which was a very visible look at the situation. In other words, that those people can't eat unless they get in that soup line and wait and get a bowl of soup. Okay?
Wow.
Well, now we have it. We just don't see it because what's going on is these EBT cards. I'm not against helping the poor at all.
Right.
My point is that they're smarter about how it looks because the person in line that buys groceries is basically a soup line participant is giving a plastic card that works just as good as mine when they check out of the grocery store. So there's a lot more poverty that exists, but it just is hidden better than it was in the 30s.
Now, with all the chaos in the world, where is David putting his money? Gold, silver? You leaning more towards
Platinum,
silver?
I'll interrupt you.
Serious?
I'm older, so I tend more toward, even though I love silver and I'm way overweighted silver, but I didn't have much platinum. And I think it was two things. One, it's almost always carried a premium to gold. And secondly, I thought the downside risk here at this moment in time was almost nil. I mean, it's such a small market. I actually had trouble buying what I bought, which wasn't like an astronomical amount, but it's such a small market. I had trouble getting the specific, order that I wanted. I got it filled. So that's what I did. I haven't bought this kind of platinum in size in a long time. I used to play the futures market in platinum palladium almost. That was years ago. So surprise answer.
Yeah, that was a very surprising answer. Do you think here's a controversial question. Do you think it's as manipulated as silver and gold in the paper markets?
Yeah, I mean, as manipulated, no, probably not
Okay.
as because it's such a small market and there's so few participants. It's one of those things you kind of could kick back and relax, and it's out of control. You can lazily look at your watch and dial the dial down a little bit.
That's
Whereas
hilarious.
for silver and gold, there's a lot more dials being turned all the time.
That's hilarious. So another thing that made me laugh is Janet Yellen came out last week and she's saying that the stock market and the markets are functioning like absolutely well. Are they just paid to lie at this point, or are they just clueless?
Well, that'll be a specific answer. God forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think Janet Yellen is just clueless. I really believe that. Now, others are clued in, but they say it and they know they're lying, or they're disingenuous is the fancy term. But as far as poor Janet's concerned, she is so entrenched as an academic and held positions of power for so long, she actually believes the BS.
Now, David, another article I read is Amazon, they're closing 4 out of 5 of their call centers. They closed 44 warehouses, and they even halted construction at 7 different office towers. What do you think is going on? Are we starting to see the bubble popping, or at least some pressure?
I have an excellent question. I mean, all of them have been good, but this is one that I want to key in on because it's such an important one. When you see the best of the best start to falter, that tells you the top is in. So there's been nothing that's been touted more and gone up more in price. And I know probably Tesla's maybe beat on a percentage basis. My point is that one of the stalwarts, the darlings of darlings, has been Amazon. All through the COVID thing, look at Amazon's profits. Now they are contracting rapidly. And that's a really good indicator that we're ringing the bell at the top.
Right. Do you think this is like a serious indicator for like, we already know that we're in a recession, but do you think this is like the final nail in the coffin going forward?
Yeah, I want to make that point. And thanks for making me clarify it. Basically, there's no clear indicator to me, having studied markets most of my life, that when you see something as sacrosanct as Amazon start to contract or start to, I would say fail, but start to contract, that's a sure sign that the good times are over. We're going from a system of too much and we're moving toward a system of too little. And unfortunately, the too little part hits the more impoverished countries first, like we've outlined Sri Lanka and Argentina and many others. And they're hurting and they're going to riot in the street, as you outlined. And it hasn't hit the wealthier countries yet, but at some point it will.
Well, David, we really appreciate you coming down to Wall Street Silver. Any last words for our community?
Yeah, I just think, be real, buy real, get real. I mean, we have to be real with each other.
Right.
Don't pay too much attention to the mainstream press. I really think what you've done at Wall Street Silver is a benefit to humanity at large. Yes, I'm silver nut, and yes, I'm biased. But nonetheless, the truth works, and you're spilling plenty of it every time you guys do something at Wall Street Silver. So thank you for that.
Thank you, David. We really appreciate you coming down and speaking to everyone, and we hope to talk to you soon.
My pleasure.